I'm Jonelle. Welcome to White Women Wake Up.
And I'm Karen.
Each week, one of us brings a topic to the table, something we've been wrestling with, reading about, or noticing in our own lives.
And the other reacts in real time. No scripts, no prep, just an honest conversation between a mother and daughter spanning generations about what it means to wake up as white women in a world shaped by bias, power, and inherited patterns.
We don't always agree, and it's not always comfortable, but we show up anyways.
Let's wake up.
Let's wake up.
Hi, Jonelle.
Hi, Karen. How's your week been?
My week's been good. I keep thinking about our bingo card and how I got to get my act together.
But that's the beauty of the bingo card. This is what I love about the bingo card. It is about the year. It is not about, it's the marathon of the year.
Yeah.
It's not the sprint into the new season. I saw a commercial the other day that said something like, I think it was an Apple commercial, that said something about like most people like break their New Year's resolution by January 9th.
Yeah.
And so that's what I love about the bingo.
Which would be now.
It's not the sprint. It's not this overwhelming shift from like parties, holiday, relaxing to like now be a better person.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what do I want to do this year? What do I want to go after?
I think I need to keep it more visible though, because then I've got like, maybe I need to make bingo cards or something, because then I've got this idea of what does it mean to look for those things as I'm doing it? Because I really do like this idea of intention.
Yeah. I have it on my Notion app.
Okay.
And so I just like click and check on, and I have a little widget on my phone. So I can just like click and check off. And
well, aren't you special?
Well, you know me, I love checklists. So like anytime I can like check off something, I'm like, yes.
I'm going to put it like tape it to my bathroom window or something.
Okay.
Hey, just reflection.
I got a Cricut for Christmas, or not for Christmas, but I got a Cricut with holidays. I can make you a vinyl one to put on your mirror.
I love
if you want to look every day.
Hey, I just wanted to reflect a bit on what you were talking about last week. And, you know, I really, first of all, I appreciate you talked about this idea that all of us are lonely. And I think all of us, it's not just a male epidemic or a female epidemic. I look at all my students, I look at myself. And I think and it was interesting to put it in the context of what we've learned, this idea of when is systems designed things. And so have like language and narratives design something that we might not really even inherently believe. And so, or when have I put like structures on my own ability to learn? It kind of does lead a little bit into my topic today, but I just, nothing arose from it. Yeah. But it did make me think about, in context of what we're trying to do with what we're doing here. Again, it's not someone else's job to teach me, but it's my job to step into the story.
Well, and I think it's so important to really dig about systems, because I want to be clear, there probably could be some like misconstrued perspective of what I was trying to say last time, and it could still sound like I'm down on men or hard on men. And I think as the individual...
Well, I saw it more as a theme of blaming. And then when we blame someone, we may not do the work ourselves.
Thank you. Well, that's my hope. My hope was not for men to go out there and feel like, oh, again, they're being hard on us. What can I do? This and that. My intent really is around like recognizing these systems. And again, until we recognize the systems, until we call out the actual problem, we can't resolve it. And I think I learned a really interesting thing about systematic racism, or a good analogy about systematic racism that like I think really capture what we're talking about, how systems affect. Because I think people think large scale systems and like, okay, if we, adjust this system, then it'll all be good. But systematic oppression are about systems built on each other. And so this example was that around health, around lung health for BIPOC people. And so I read until 2021, breathing machines were actually read differently for white people as they were for people of color, because there had been this historical belief that people of color have different lung capacity than white people. And so because of that, people of color were completely misdiagnosed for like things
because
like COPD.
the machine was adjusted poorly.
This machine was adjusted poorly. And modern doctors they've now known that that is not the case. And modern doctors didn't even know, though, that the machines were programmed for this.
Wow.
Because, so doctors in the 50s and 60s would do the natural numbers to adjust. But when these programs were built, there was still this, or when these computer systems were built and then continued to be updated and updated, there was still thinking that there was a difference between white people and people of color. And so it was integrated already within these systems and not even adjusted until 2021. And that stems all the way back from, I believe it was George Washington who had made a comment in a medical journal about Black people having different lung capacity than white people. And so over the years within medical journals, it shifted and it got, and so that's what we're talking about, systematic oppression.
Yeah.
That is one thing that was built into the narrative of how we even live today.
Yeah.
Even though people know that it's not the case, it is still was systematically affecting.
Yeah. And we know that there's systematic narratives that affect males differently 100%. Than females. Yeah.
But that was just such a great picture in my head of when people think it's about, okay, well, we're getting rid of like the idea or the large picture and not understanding all of these small integrated pieces that still factor into systematic oppression today.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny. It's not exactly my topic, but it's opening to my topic.
Great.
So Jonelle and I, after last week, we were talking about our tangents and how these kind of tangents lead to the discussion. And we do say that in the intro. It's, what we read and so forth. So this one is kind of a tangent. And so I just got done reading an article from a colleague that she wrote, The View from Here, Facilitating Perspective Through Taking Through Art in Taking Through Art. Wait, let me read that again. The View from Here, Facilitating Perspective, Talking Through Art. And it was written by my colleague, Dr. Katie Kresser. Okay. And in the article, now she's talking about perspective and opening our point of views. She quotes a C.S. Lewis
excerpt
tagging of what he called the watchful dragon. And it's so interesting. Okay. So according to, synthesizing, the watchful dragon is the unconscious inner protector that guards our sense of safety by resisting new ideas, or experiences that threaten the stories we've learned to believe about ourselves and the world. So think about this. I love the word dragon because in a way it's, the negative, but there's this watchful overseer of it. The dragon is this overseer of our stories.
Okay.
Why I liked that quote is Jonelle and I got to go to London over the holidays, and we were in a cab, and Jonelle knows this story because I walked away kind of really bothered by this. Jonelle's looking at me like, what story is that?
I know.
But we were in a cab, and in the cab, we sparked up the conversation. He was a white male, probably in his 60s, and we kind of asked him what kind of audience he had in the cab, or what were some of the writers he had. And he was really positive. He talked like as if he loved all people. And he went on to say that he never really had a problem with any of his writers.
Yeah.
He loved all people. And something in the conversation turned where I mentioned that I had a waitress the night before, a waiter the night before, and I commented on her looks.
Oh, yes.
And I said I kind of felt bad because I really generalized what I said. I wished I was more specific.
For clarifying the audience, she was a person of color, and you said, I like your look.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how that could potentially be misconstrued. What you meant is you liked her styling of her earrings.
Yeah.
You really enjoyed her earrings.
I didn't take the time to be explicit. And
she didn't take it negatively, but she had every right to probably to
kind of
go,
it
is a little bit.
Is my look exotic? What are some of the stereotypes
by your look?
Of that, right? And so all of a sudden he turned around and he started going on a really negative, not a story, but an opinion or a perspective about immigrants. And I was kind of taken aback because here he just got done saying, oh, I love these people. Everyone I meet, I love. And now he's like, I didn't know how to trust him. And it made me start
And he also
thinking,
started talking about my woke generation and how they're worried about everyone
anything we say
is
and
getting
everything
upset,
we
and
do.
he's from a time of,
And so,
which we've all heard that story before.
Yeah,
of like,
we've all
why are we
heard
shifting?
that.
Why are people taking things so offensive?
And so when I read Katie's story, that Watchful Dragon by C.S. Lewis was exactly how I would term this guy, in that he had grown up with a set of perspectives. He had a set of perspectives, and he wasn't willing to change those or and yet his communication was such of love and care. So it really caught me off guard, and it also then helped me understand, what does it mean to be in conversations that we don't trust?
To be fair, I don't think he actually said anything negative from my perspective or from my memory, because I have a different perspective of that story that I'd love to share. I don't know if he truly even said anything hateful about a particular group of people. No, what he started saying is he started getting defensive about change is what he did and stuff. And I so I don't want to go so hard as it was clearly that this man, his perspective was he's fine with, like, he doesn't have hateful thoughts about people, is what it was clear about. But it is interesting how he also still didn't want to shift to make this world a more inclusive place for people. And so it's the disconnect there. But I have a different perspective of that story. So speaking of, I think you're kind of going off of, like, our history kind of informs our surroundings, our history kind of informs
or our perspective.
Because my memory of that is you were silent. You didn't engage with him. I engaged with him.
Because afterwards, this is exactly the interesting thing, because afterwards, when he made that comment, I didn't trust him. And I just shut up. And so this is interesting, because my Watchful Dragon, which is all about trying to keep the status quo, trying to stay comfortable, walking away from discomfort, I disengaged in the conversation.
And that's exactly how I took it. From a little bit my perspective, my Watchful Dragon took it as you were policing me and you wanted me to stop talking.
And I made it,
You think, because even after we got out of the cab, I tried to talk about it with you and you didn't really want to engage in the conversation. And so that is my perspective of the story. So that's why I really think it's interesting you brought this up, because I would have taken that as you were dismissed because you wanted to be lighthearted on this trip, and I was just, again, pushing into things. And isn't that interesting?
Why I shut up is I realized I didn't have the skill sets to enter in. And my reflection, although it's not completely in line with my theme, but I'll tell you my reflection real quick. In hindsight, what I wished I had done is asked him what specific of his story made him have that perspective. Like, I would like, so it's interesting.
Because I did ask him questions, though, to try to get an understanding. But you're right, I didn't go in that sense. I tried to, I felt like I still opened up a dialogue in a nice way with him. But.
So you did. No. But one of the things is, because as we're learning, we each have our individual stories. And we are not going to grow unless we all become aware of our stories. And one of the ways that we become aware of our stories is talking them out loud. And so if I mean, I'm not saying for him to say his story so that I judge it.
No.
I'm trying to listen to his story so that I understand.
And maybe learn from your own self. Like you said, learn how you react to things. And
okay, so one of the things that when we look at this term, the Watchful Dragon, what we're talking about is our kind of inner thoughts, are the things that have shaped us, like culture, things that make us feel safe. One thing that is being argued or being discussed with C.S. Lewis is he doesn't think that our prejudice actually stem from hatred. but our prejudice stem from fear, and our prejudice stem from a space unwilling to learn and transform. And I thought that was really interesting. So I had the opposite happen, or not the opposite happen. I had another thing happen, and I'm not going to mention names because I'm not sure. I don't think this person listens, but they may. I have a perspective of a person based on my face-to-face.
Okay.
And then this person made a comment that I thought was very hateful on Facebook.
Oh.
And I was extremely sad.
Hateful to you or hateful to
in
generic?
general.
Okay.
Generic. And I immediately, for my own safety and for my own comfort, wanted to judge them. That was kind of my watchful dragon. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hate them and I'm going to diss them and I'm going to say that this is everything they are based on that comment.
Yeah.
And yet I realized that my trigger in this is something that maybe I should learn from. How can I hold this person, love this person, because I do, and yet at the same time understand what it is that they said. Yeah. And so I'm trying to look at and I don't have an answer yet, but I'm trying to look at my own interior space to find out how can I hold them.
Yeah.
Is it having a conversation later on? Like, why did they have this perspective? Is this me trying to do more research about that perspective?
Yeah.
But anyways, so one of the things that I also went a little bit farther.
Wait, before we move into that, I think that is like such the commonality that a lot, I mean, this is a lot of the reason why we started this podcast is politically where we're at, the divide of people's thoughts and perspective. And we talk about how lucky we are, at least between the two of us and our political beliefs. But like how so often it's so hard to talk to some family members. And like I think are much luckier than other families who are so torn and split. And so I do think you're bringing up something that is this constant divide in people. Like they love a person.
And I think it goes both ways.
Totally. I'm not saying
clearly I have a preconceived idea of now what I think the person is based on the comment. And I want to prejudice against them.
Yeah.
And this person in the same respect made a comment that was really cruel and deceitful. And they have a prejudice against something. So whereas they're watchful dragon that's keeping them comfortable.
But I don't that's not your position to do or care about. I agree. And so I think what I was going to say is like when you were kind of talking about what are your options? Do you talk to them? Do you not? Is it's again going back to what are your intent in it? I think if your intent is to change them, that's never a good place to start.
It's not a good place to start.
I mean, you can hope for change, but it shouldn't be your intent.
And my intent needs to look at my own heart. So anyways, I loved. So as I did some more research, I just kind of doing a word vomit online and stuff like that. This language of our inner algorithm.
Okay. Ooh.
Because we're in this world now where we know what it's like when we look at TikTok or we look at Instagram and our algorithm brings up, stereotypical ideas of what it thinks we want. And so I thought that was really significant, this idea of what naturally comes up in my own internal world of what I think is good, what I think is bad, what I think it is, and how I spend so much time trying to protect that algorithm. And even as I say it, inner algorithm, it sounds so silly because I know if Google is showing me another pair of shoes, I may not want that. Or if Google's showing me a different kind of boot that I didn't look at, I may not want that. So is that happening to us internally as well, where something may be coming up that I may not even 100% agree, but because I've been socialized in that space or I've watched enough movies around that, it's saying that that's who I am. And so
I think that's called internal turmoil.
Internal turmoil. That's probably it. But I loved that kind of these ideas of thoughts coming up to us that sometimes are just so natural, I guess.
Well, and I do want to go back to your conversation about C.S. Lewis, though.
The Watchful Dragon.
Yeah, I'm not going to criticize that source. We'll move on from there. But I do think a lot of sociologists and therapists have determined that hate stems from fear. Hate is not necessarily the natural first inclination.
Yeah.
It is all stemming from a place of fear. And fear can move into sadness. It can move into hate. It can move into a lot of different things. Disdain. It can move. But the core thing there is fear. And so it is interesting is they say as like society, our fear like sectors or our fear, I don't know, whatever notices fear in our body has had to shift over the years because naturally, biologically, fear was built in for survival instincts. It was built in to be aware that there's a lion coming out to eat you. It was, fear that like, don't eat these berries. Like, that was, it was naturally built for. But then over the years, the fear receptors has, we don't need to worry as much about hunting and gathering and natural and all of those things. And so fear has moved much more into like emotional engagements or like social engagements kind of thing. And so it is interesting how different fear reactors have created different responses in people kind of thing. I think that's kind of where you're going.
Well, it's interesting also.
But to your point to this turmoil of like some people, if something comes up because they're inherently biased towards something, some people's fear reactors say, oh my God, we must hate that. Where other people's fear reactors, like you're kind of saying with this internal turmoil, bring up curiosity instead. Or why is this bringing this up in me?
Yeah, or you respond by just shutting down.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because as you're saying this fear reactors, we don't use fear language.
No.
So we typically use hate language.
Yes.
This person is awful. Instead of, I fear that through their thoughts and actions, this may result from.
Because I don't think,
and it's really like it's funny that you should say that because this is not where I'm kind of going with this Watchful Dragon.
Sorry.
But no, I actually think it's a really good conversation.
Well, it goes back to the last
because what triggered me was the hate speech.
Yeah. It goes back to the last week's conversation, though, about emotional literacy.
Yeah.
I think the reason being is because people aren't, and we talk about in the discomfort cycle, the book a little bit, people aren't necessarily taught to identify the correct emotions. We're taught to identify sad, happy, hate.
Yeah.
We're not really, and fear of like physical fear, like there's a ghost, like there's but not emotional fear. And that's the thing is we're not really taught to separate those and analyze those. And I think the more you point that out, the more people can identify their fear, the better, or their feelings.
Like the cab driver, one of the reasons I was quiet afterwards is I was thinking, okay, how could I have re-entered that conversation? Yeah. And I wished I had said, hindsight is everything, said something like, can you tell me your perspective and an incident in your life that would have given you those ideas? And he may not have had one.
But do you also think that would have been way too deep for a cab ride?
Well, I don't know, but this is our problem: is we're not getting to the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of our conversations.
But is that our job with a cab guy who we're never going to see again?
Well, I think
what is our job in this as a society?
I think the thing is, and who knows, maybe that's a situation was more about when I'm at a dinner table. Then will I stop and ask when that next point of view is met, will I actually say, can you give me a personal anecdote of how that affected you? Because I think one of the things that I find with myself is if there's something that is moved me to this level of such anger or hate, either A, it's just something I read and I don't know if I really believe it, or B, I physically had an experience that moved me to that space.
Do we think the better question is just tell me more? Because I think asking someone, give me an example, does start to create, like in my mind, or at least I'm thinking with my own circle that I would have these conversations with. I get what you mean. Like, if you said that to me, I would understand. I'd give you example. Yeah. But I do see the conversation that I'm having that would throw up a defense flag. So I wonder if it's as simple as just tell me more.
You know what the funny thing is? But here's the challenge. Why I'm saying I wish I were specific on the question is because I don't want him to tell me more rhetoric that he has read in the news. I want to know, does he have a personal relationship to this experience?
But here's why I say this. We spent all year last year telling listeners that the number one thing they can do to be an ally is listen.
Yeah, I would have liked to have listened.
But here's my point is, but why is that your narrative to decide what story they tell us?
Yeah, why is that policing?
Like, is that policing?
Yeah.
Like, is there going to be, and again, I don't know right or wrong. I'm just thinking through this.
Maybe you even start to see if it's a trustworthy conversation.
That's what I'm saying. Is it
so is it tell me more?
Tell me more.
Then, oh, that's interesting. Did this affect you personally?
Exactly.
Something like that.
Or tell me more and you're feeling like this is not even a source of that I can go. There's no logic that I can bring to this. There's nothing I can add.
Yeah.
And then just say, well, I understand. Like, it is an interesting. Yeah. I think I'm going to try to practice that this week. It's going to be hard.
I do want to say a couple things.
Sorry.
So this notion of this watchful dragon or your inner algorithm is it really does end up protecting our self-image.
Yeah.
And we need to question that because when we're so busy protecting our self-image, we may not be stepping into opportunities of curiosity and learning. So, because white women have been taught to be kind and polite and helpful and quote unquote inclusive, we don't realize that we might be actually causing some harm.
Yeah.
So if we become defensive and either think or say things like, well, that wasn't racist, or gosh, I didn't mean it that way, or yeah, I have Black friends or BIPOC friends or queer friends. Those statements often are defense statements.
Yes.
And are the watchful dragon statements because they keep our self-image of that we're a decent human being intact.
Well, this is what I was trying to talk about last week.
They also can keep us from learning. So we need to not think of these watchful dragons or inner algorithms, whatever we want to call them, as a villain. We need to think of them more as a temperature. So how does this kind of response, this kind of defensiveness, this kind of protectiveness keep us from deeper learning?
Yeah.
Keep us from waking up. Keep us from transformation.
I love that.
So that's the question that I encourage each of us to ask.
Think about for next week.
Yeah. Move through.
I love that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Well, on that note, wait, before we exit out, because we jumped right in and I wanted to do some quick announcements again. Reminder of our book club, everyone.
Yes.
We are starting a book club, a banned book club in February. We are going to do one once a month is the goal. We're going to set out the next 3 books that we're going to read. But even if you don't read the books, please come join for the discussion. An email is coming out. It should be either in your inbox or coming soon. But please, 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 if you are not subscribed to us, go to whitewomenwakeup.com and please subscribe to our email list so you can get all the fun news. Also, the bingo cards should have been sent out to everyone, all the subscribers by now. If not, you can go to our website and the bingo card will be on the website. And there'll be more details on how you can submit and win the prize which is being a guest on the podcast.
Okay, Jonelle, how do they subscribe again to the newsletter? They
subscribe to go to whitewomenwakeup.com and you will see several buttons that say subscribe. Usually if you scroll all the way down, but I think we even have a button at the top somewhere too that says subscribe.
And if you're one of our Instagram followers, you can click on the link up above.
Oh, nice. So you can do the same thing with TikTok. Anyways, but please join us. We're excited. about all the fun things that we have going on this year.
Thank you. And remember, it's a banned book club.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us on White Women Wake Up. We hope today's conversation sparks something in you, whether it's reflection, a new question, or deeper commitment to showing up with empathy and accountability. If you found this episode meaningful, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can also connect with us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Substack, or at whitewomenwakeup.com. We would love to hear your thoughts and keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious, be open, and let's keep waking up together.
Bye.
Hey, just a quick playback. We want to name a couple of citations from today's conversation in case you want to explore them more deeply. Art historian Dr. Katie Kresser, in her article, The View from Here, Facilitating Perspective, Taking Through Art, published in Christian Scholars Review, reflects on a metaphor from C.S. Lewis. Lewis asks whether we might steal past those watchful dragons, the inner guards that protect our assumptions, but can also block us from deeper truth. That image comes from Lewis's essay, Sometimes Fairy Stories May Say Best, What's to Be Said, reminding us that defensiveness isn't the enemy, it's often the doorway.